welcome back, and today we are feeling very 90s on my channel, very hanging out on the quad in, you know, fall semester kind of nonsense. Got my Rachel haircut wig and my flannel on, and I'm just feeling all of the fall vibes. But I put a poll out on my channel asking which palette you would like to see a look from first of the new, kind of the ones that have been grabbing my interest that have come out lately. And those were the Cinnamon Swirl from Too Faced, the Retro Midi from Natasha Denona, and the MAC Tempting Fate, or Feast Your Eyes palette from the Tempting Fate collection. And I have been playing around with all three. But the winner of the poll was the Too Faced Cinnamon Swirl palette. So I will be showing you how to get this look that I created today. I will be sharing some swatches with you, showing you just some looks that I have created with this palette over the past few days. Just share my overall thoughts and maybe some comparisons. So if you want to see how I got this look and check out my thoughts on this palette, then stick around. I will put timestamps down below in the description box, so if you want to check out just the look, or if you just want to check out the swatches or my overall thoughts, yada yada yada, I'll put that down below. But if you want to see how I got this look, stick around. Alright guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. So I did start off by priming my eyes with my Too Faced Shadow Insurance, which I just threw, and I did carve out my brows with my Wet n Wild Ultimate Brow Highlighter and just blended that down. So we're gonna just jump into the palette. Starting off with Flower Power on just a fluffy kind of shadow brush. This is a Flower Beauty EO1. I am gonna just use Flower Power to set everything from my lash line to my brow bone. Using a Wet n Wild Fluffy brush, I'm gonna go into the shade Doughboy. I'm gonna tap off my brush because these shadows are very powdery, and I'm just gonna start laying down my transition. I'm going to be pretty generous with this shade. Picking up a Morphe M441, I am now going to go into the shade Ready, Set, Bake. Again, just dusting off my eyeshadow, and I'm just going to lay this down over Doughboy just to kind of pinken up the eye a little bit. It's also going to work to deepen that crease. Picking up a BR250 brush, I'm going to go in with Cinnamon Swirl and just a little bit of Batter Up. Batter Up is not one of my favorite shades, but I do need a little bit of depth in the outer corner. And I'm just going to start placing this and creating this kind of elongated shape. Picking up that same type of brush, this is just a BR250 brush, it's just a different brush because I'm going in with the shade Food Court. And I'm actually not going to wet this down. This is like sequin shade, I guess is what they call it. It's a matte with glitter in it. And I find that this applies pretty well without being wet down. And I'm going to take this over the kind of almost right to the inner corner, but not quite. I'm just going to use that fluffy end of that brush to blend it into Cinnamon Swirl and Batter Up. Going back in with that Wet n Wild Fluffy brush with no more product on it, I'm just going to blend everything out. I'm doing to deepen this up just a little bit, so I'm going back in with that M441 with no more product on it. Just blending it into that Food Court shade. Now I'm going to pick up a BRCS20 brush from Coastal Scents, which is just a flat shader brush, and I'm going to go into the shade Sticky Fingers, and I am going to spray this down. I'm going to take this shade from my most inner part of the lid, and then I'm just going to blend it over into that Food Court shade. And even with my brush wet down, you can see I am getting some fallout. This palette has a crazy amount of fallout even when you do wet your shades down. Picking up that BR250 brush again with no more product on it, again I'm just going to blend these two together. Now using just a pencil brush, this one's just from BH Cosmetics, I'm going to go into the shade Sugar Rush, and again I am going to wet the shade down and just place this right on my inner corner, right underneath the tear duct as well. And I'm just going to blend that up into Sticky Fingers. And then to lighten it up slightly, I'm going to go in with that same brush and Gooey Goodness. Again, I am going to wet this brush down. And I'm just going to go right over that Sugar Rush shade, just to lighten it ever so slightly. For the lower lash line, I'm going to take a Real Techniques shading brush, and I'm going to go into the shade Batter Up and Cinnamon Swirl again. And I'm just going to start running this along the lower lash line. I'm going to take that about 2/3 of the way in. Then using that same brush, I'm going to go back in with Food Court and take that towards the inner portion of the eye. Picking up a Real Techniques base shadow brush, I'm going to go back in with Doughboy and just blend this all out. All right, I'm gonna go throw on some mascara, a little bit of liner and lashes, and I'll be right back. All right, everybody. So I just threw on some lashes and I did a little bit of the NYX Faux Whites in Lavender on my lower lash line and just threw on some mascara on my upper and lower lashes. So that is the look. All right, guys, so that is the final look. I did use on my lips, trying out some of the Nabla powders that were on part of the 21 Days of Beauty from Ulta. I'm wearing a bronzer, a blush, and a highlighter. I'm also wearing the Jordana Easy Liner in Cabernet underneath the Dusty Grape matte lipstick from the Tempting Fate collection from MAC. Beautiful. This collection, the packaging is just stunning. But let's go ahead and get into the palette and talk about the individual shades. So I'm just going to go through one by one, swatch, and show you what I think. And I think we'll do the mattes first. So the first matte in the palette is Flower Power. This is a skin toned, almost pinky undertoned bone type of color. Then you have Doughboy, which is what I used on my transition today, which is just a soft beigey transition shade for somebody of my skin tone. Then you have See Me Rollin', which is this shade right here, which is kind of a mid-tone warm brown. And the final matte in the top row is Lick the Spoon, which is a pretty like orangey leaning beige shade. Let me just show you the swatches there. So those are the first four mattes. So you have Flower Power, Doughboy, See Me Rolling, and Lick the Spoon. In the next row, you have two mattes. You have Muffin Top, and then you have Cinnamon Swirl. So Muffin Top is kind of a more, it's less pink than Doughboy. I use those interchangeably as transition shades. So that is Muffin Top, that is Cinnamon Swirl. Cinnamon Swirl is one of my favorite shades in the palette. It's what I used in my inner corner today. I tend to use Muffin Top more than Doughboy as a transition, but since I did a more pinky look today, I did go with Doughboy. And in the bottom row of the palette, there are two more mattes. There is Ready Set Bake, which is what I used in my crease today, and Batter Up, which is a deep, kind of neutral brown. I would say it's neutral leaning cool. So that is Ready Set Bake and Batter Up. I really like Ready Set Bake. It's a beautiful dusty mauve shade. Batter Up, I do not like. I do not like this shade. It's extremely patchy. It's extremely hard to blend. I have tried to use this shade in multiple looks. It goes on the eye patchy and then it just sticks. It doesn't like to blend out at all. So it is definitely not my favorite. Plus the coolness of this shade is kind of disjointed, I feel personally, with the rest of the palette. I do use it in conjunction with Cinnamon Swirl to help deepen up the outer corner like I did today, but I do not rely on this shade when using this palette because it is just not a good shade. You know, Too Faced does brown so well, and you can even see in the swatch how patchy this shade goes on. It's terrible. I do not like this shade at all. But the other mattes in the palette are absolutely beautiful. My favorites are Ready Set Bake. Again, I love Muffin Top, I love Flower Power, and I love Cinnamon Swirl. So I do really like all of the other mattes in here. I can't stand Batter Up. I think it's absolutely a terrible shade. So those are the mattes. Now let's talk about the shimmers in here. So in the first row, you do have Frost Those Buns and then Sticky Buns. And I will say this, these are really pretty shades. I will say this for the shimmers in here, I find a majority of them do work better when you wet them down. So Frost Those Buns, and you are gonna have fallout. So even in the swatches, you can see there are kind of some chunky fallout to these shades, but they're really beautiful. Sticky Buns, I think in particular, is the one that probably applies the best to the eye, dry, without any help of wetting down a brush or using a finger. But I do like Frost Those Buns as well, but Sticky Buns is one of my favorite shadows in the entire palette. In the next row, you have Love the Bun You're With, which is funny. Then you have Sweet and Spicy, which is actually the one shade I have not used in a look. Then you have I'm Toasted and Stay Current. So Love the Bun You're With, Sweet and Spicy, I'm Toasted, and Stay Current. So let me swatch these for you. So love the bun you're with. It's okay. It's kind of a more watered down version of sticky buns, and it's almost got a peachy golden turn to it. So it is pretty. It's one of those shadows that you're definitely going to want to wet down in order to use, and it's just going to need a little bit more help. Sweet and Spicy is definitely a cooler tone, and it is very beautiful as well. Again, this is the one shadow I have not used on my eye, but it swatches very much like sticky buns. It's a gorgeous, almost like cool leaning bronze tone. My hands are getting so messy, sorry guys. I'm Toasted is a pretty coppery shade. It's nothing that's wowing me or that I haven't seen before. It's nowhere near as beautiful as Sweet and Spicy or Sticky Buns, but it's nice. It works well when you wet it down. It's just a kind of a nice copper shimmer, nothing to write home about. And then Stay Current. I hate this shade. I don't like this shade either. It's pretty when you swatch it. It's like a dark blackened plum with pink and gold sparkle in it, but it's not good. I tried using it with a brush. It like is non-existent if you try using it with a brush in my experience. I used a more densely packed brush to try and get this on the eye. I wanted to deepen it up, use it in the quarter of this look today to deepen it up, and it just was so terrible. I couldn't even deepen it up by layering up Batter Up or Cinnamon Swirl on it. So I just ended up wiping it off and starting over. So this is probably a shade that won't get any, I can't really, unless I'm just doing this all over the eye and just laying it down wet, I probably wouldn't even mess with this shade, because in just doing a really smoky purple eye, I'm not impressed with that one at all. It swatches okay, but definitely I would put that in the same category as Batter Up, because it's kind of a crappy shade. The last row, you have 4 shimmers. You have Sugar Rush, which is on my inner corner, underneath Gooey Goodness, which is also on my inner corner today. Then you have Sticky Fingers, which is on the inner portion of my lid, and Food Court, which is that purple shade that is on the outer portion of my lid. And I'm going to swatch these. So Sugar Rush is a really pretty pink with a gold, it's like a gold with a pinky turn. It's really pretty. I really enjoy this one on the eye. This one is a little flaky, and I definitely find that you need to wet this one down to get the full impact of it, but it is really, really pretty. Gooey Goodness is a little bit lighter. Again, it's going to be a little bit flakier, but if you wet it down, it is going to be absolutely beautiful on the eye. It is definitely more of a topper shade than Sugar Rush. It's probably the least, it has the least opacity out of any of the shimmers in the palette, but it is pretty. I wouldn't use it anywhere else really, except for just the inner corner, and use it, you know, to wet it down. So it's kind of limiting in that respect, but you know, it's not again, it's not a terrible shade, but definitely Sugar Rush is beautiful. And then let's swatch. I'm running out of room. Sticky Fingers, again, is what I put on the middle portion of my eye today, and it's kind of a peach with an orangey gold turn. It's pretty. It's really pretty. I would definitely suggest applying this one wet. You're not going to have the impact if you don't apply it wet, plus you're going to have a lot of fallout. Even if you apply it wet like we saw in the tutorial today, it's pretty, but again, it's a little bit of a glittery mess, and it's nothing to write home about. So, but it's pretty. And then Food Court is the purple shade. Now this one does not swatch the best. It is not the most impressive when you swatch it, but I really like it on the eye. It's kind of a sequin shade. It's almost like a satin with, it's either a satin or a matte with a like bluish reflect in it, and it's super, super pretty. It's really went on the eye very easily. I didn't have to wet the shade down, and I think it turned out really beautiful on the eye. So I think this one actually translated to the eye one of the best out of any of the shades in the palette. So as far as the shimmers, I love Sugar Rush. I do like Sweet and Spicy. I want to try this one. Sticky Buns is amazing. This one right here. And then I liked Food Court. Again, Stay Current, terrible. So those are the shades and just my thoughts about the individual shadows themselves and my experience with putting them on my face. Let's talk comparisons. So obviously the ones that most people are comparing them to are the gingerbread, the extra spicy, and the pumpkin. So this is, I'm just gonna line them up together. So the bottom one is the cinnamon swirl, and this one is the extra spicy. I don't feel like these are similar at all. I think the extra spicy is definitely warmer. It's got more just kind of pinky, yellow, orangey tones, while the cinnamon swirl is definitely more of a pinky purple, bronzy kind of palette. So I don't think these are similar at all. If you have this one and you're wondering if it is just a dupe of, you know, this one's a dupe of this one, I would say no. Again, with the original gingerbread spice, you are going to have a little bit of overlap in some of these browns. I think gingerbread and See Me Rollin' are very similar. Look at My Cookie and Lick the Spoon are similar. I mean, powdered sugar and flower power are similar. But that's about as much crossover as you're gonna get. I think the gingerbread spice palette is definitely a little bit more bold and not as neutral. You can get more versatility out of that palette. You can get versatility out of this palette where you can go a little bit cooler depending on the neutrals you use. You can go warmer, or you can go kind of more purpley pink. But I think the gingerbread spice, you can definitely go kind of more gold. You can even go a little bit more green with the Spice of Life shade. You can go really super hot pink with this Gumdrop and the Hot Toddy shade. So again, I don't think these are dupes of each other as far as the gingerbread or the gingerbread extra spicy. The one I would say it is most similar to is the pumpkin spice. Gingerbread spice, pumpkin spice, cinnamon swirl. I'm getting so confused. Let me do this here. So in comparison to the pumpkin spice, you still are getting some overlay. I think cinnamon swirl and See Me Rollin' are very similar to Spice Baby. Again, you've got whipped cream and flower power. You've got crisp is a shimmer, you know, but it is similar to Ready Set Bake. I would say you're still not getting a whole lot of overlap in here in terms of the palettes. I would think these are probably have the most similar vibe, even though you do have, again, the kind of those mustards and the pinks and the greens. I would say as far as the neutrals, these are probably the most similar in terms of the neutrals and the purples. I would say if you have the pumpkin spice, I would not spend money on the cinnamon swirl because I think the pumpkin spice is better. In fact, I think the gingerbread spice and the extra spicy are better as well. So overall thoughts, you're getting $49 for 18 shades, or in my case, 16 shades, because these two I do not like and will not use them because they just frustrate me, or I can't use them to the extent that I would want to use them. It's okay. It's not a bad palette. It's not a great palette. I would say if you missed out on maybe like the original chocolate bar or the gingerbread or the pumpkin spice and you're wanting a Too Faced holiday palette, I don't think you're going to be disappointed. I don't think you're going to, you know, it's not going to, you know, knock you out of your shoes either. So it's just kind of a good, steady, middle of the road palette. And I think it's just a matter of, do you like it enough? Do you like the color story enough to go out and spend the money on it? So just in terms of what I have in my collection and what I've seen from Too Faced, it is not my favorite by far. It does smell nice. It smells like cinnamon, so it's very like Christmassy for me. So I just stuck my nose in a shadow. That's classy. But I'm not overwhelmed by it, but I have enjoyed it, and I've enjoyed the looks with it. It's just, again, some of these shades are a little bit flaky. You're gonna have to wet them down. You're gonna have to baby them along a little bit more. And some of the shades are just fantastic. Overall, the mattes in here are fabulous. And then again, you have some stellar shades like Sugar Rush and Sticky Buns and Food Court. So I'm kind of like, sure, if you want to get it, go get it. And if you're thinking you don't need it, then I would say no, you probably don't need it. I think overall, I'm just disappointed that Too Faced is playing it safe. I think with this theming and what they've got going on, I thought I just stuck my finger in a shadow, and what they've got going on in terms of their theming, I think they could have gone so many cute directions. Like they could have done a candy cane palette and done all reds and greens and Christmassy, or they could have gone like, I don't know, even a fruitcake palette and done all kinds of like reds and greens and yellows and funs. I just want them to do something different. It's kind of the same thing over and over again with a little bit of slight variation. So at this point, I'm not wowed by it. I love the pumpkin palette. I love the gingerbread palette. I really enjoy the extra spicy palette. This one is just not it's not knocking my socks off. All right, everybody, so those are just my thoughts, some swatches, a look, my ramblings on the Too Faced Cinnamon Swirl palette. I do want to say thank you guys so much for voting in the poll. That was really fun to kind of see what you guys wanted to see next. I was surprised. I thought more people would want to see the retro midi, but you guys surprised me. But I hope you guys like the look at least. Let me know down below. Are you guys interested in picking up this palette? Are you kind of over it? You guys know I'm creepy. I want to know your thoughts. So, but as always, guys, thank you so much for hanging out and talking about makeup with me. I hope you guys have an amazing day. Have a rockin' week, and I will see you next time.